Yesterday we discussed about NGIPS and what is the use of NGIPS we discussed. Okay. We also discussed about the history of NGIPS, like from where did the NGIPS get developed, right? Tomorrow onwards, exactly at 8 p.m. I'll start the class. So please connect at 8 p.m. So I mean like before that. Okay. Before I come to this part, means with the information about the hardware and all, before that, I would like to discuss about the terminologies of the management. Yesterday itself, I have shown you this management terminology, guys. I told you about the management, FMC, right? What is FMC? Yesterday, I told you guys about the FMC. Tell me what is FMC?
See, FMC is like the management tool in order to, where we can manage this NGIPS as
Correct.
as a part of configuration.
It's a centralized manager.
Yeah.
Okay, correct. You can see a scenario over here. Like we have NGIPS, we have FTD. In this way, I can have multiple devices. So I can manage all those devices with a centralized manager, that's your FMC. Okay. So for FMC also, yesterday I told you about the terminology, right? Earlier when it was a part of Source Fire, they called it as a defense center. When Cisco acquired it, they started calling it as a fire site defense center, also as a defense center. And with the new version again, fire site management center, fire site defense center or defense center. And with the 6.x version, Cisco started calling it as a firepower management center. So remember, this firepower management center is required to manage your NGIPS. It can be a single NGIPS or it can be multiple NGIPS. It's a firepower management center. So firepower management center can manage a same version or one version down. It means if your NGIPS is one version down than FMC, it can manage. But now let's say if I have 6.3 version of NGIPS and if I have 6.3 version of FMC, this is fine. There is no issues with this. But if I have, let's say, 6.3 NGIPS and if I have 6.2 FMC, this is not going to work. Compatibility issue. They won't get integrated. This is not possible. Okay. But if you have FMC with a 6.3 and if you have NGIPS one version down, okay, one minor version down, right, then it can manage. This will work, this will work, but this is not going to work. Okay. So these are some limitations with the management server. When you are integrating any other devices with the management server, either it is FTD or it's a NGIPS. Both of the devices, NGIPS or FTD. Okay. So FMC cannot manage the higher version of NGIPS or the FTD. This is not possible. Through FMC, we can manage the multiple firepower devices. Like it can be a multiple NGIPS devices. It can be multiple firepower devices. Okay. Now you can see here description version. These are the versions like ASA or firepower device running a next generation firewall software 6.x, a virtual device running a next generation firewall software. So basically when I talk about NGIPS or FTD or FMC, see, I'm talking about all these three firepower devices. Either it is FMC or FTD or NGIPS. These are the three products under the firepower. All these three devices are present in a form of hardware or software. Any devices in the world are in a form of hardware or software now. Earlier, only the hardwares were given priority. I mean, like, they used to demand more hardwares, but the price wise, it was very high. Now when they started introducing the software based devices, I mean, like appliances, so from that point, the cost has reduced. But in a software you'll have some limitations. In a hardware, you might have more preferences than the software appliances. But for for a dedicated type of task which can be fulfilled by your software based also, you can purchase. No need to go for a hardware only. Okay, so if you are not purchasing a hardware, then it's like you have a less cost and you don't have to think about the chassis box. In future, let's say if that hardware gets expired or outdated, in that case what to do with that device? Such things you will not have in a software, because software will be deployed on some other platform like ESXi, NSX, or it can be AWS, Google, any other. Either it's your own data center or it can be a public data center. It can be anything. So in a software based appliances, you don't have such type of issues like what will be done in a future. Like till it runs, it's fine. When it stops working, when it's outdated or it's out of cycle, no issues, leave it, stop working with that. As simple it is. But coming to the hardware, you have to think, right, how can you manage that hardware, how can you make it functional? Those things will be there. But when you have an advantage, you have a disadvantage also. Here also in a software also you have an advantage and disadvantage both. Okay, like here the resources you can add on. Like in a hardware you can add resources, like you can add the RAM, you can add interfaces, but compared to software you can't do that. In a software you will have the limitations, so whatever it is limited, with that only you have to work. So everything has positive and negative thing. So hardware will cost you more, software will cost you less. So in this way, both the devices will have both the aspects, good and bad. See, here are few things that you can see, few descriptions that they have given. A virtual device means it's a software based next generation firewall or next generation NGIPS. It can be both of the thing. Next generation IPS software for ASA device. Now what is this? Till now what you have heard is, you have heard NGIPS software. Now you're seeing here NGIPS software for ASA device. Now what is that? ASA device running an ASA firepower module. Now what is this? There are few dedicated appliances, 7000 series or 8000 series of the NGIPS. These are the hardware boxes. These are the series. These are the series. Okay. In a 7000 and 8000 also, these are the series 3 devices. If you see series 2 devices, this is outdated from the market. You don't have any more. Only series 3 devices with this model numbers or higher than this we have available in the market right now. So these are the hardware series, guys. These are the hardware series of your NGIPS. Okay, and NGIPS is also running on the software based. Series 2 devices are no more in a market. Okay, now I'll talk about what is ASA with firepower. These things I'll discuss with you guys. See, what happened earlier when NGIPS came into a picture, right? So they were in a form of hardware like 7,000, 8,000, right? And let's say, for example, those who had purchased a ASA firewall, now for them it was a problem, like what to do with the ASA box. I have already purchased a ASA box. I was supposed to buy a FTD, but like few days ago or few months ago or few years ago, they bought a ASA box, new ASA box. And after the few days, they came up with the new concept called as a FTD. So all those guys who had already purchased ASA, now they were regretting. Now they were saying, like, why did I purchase the ASA? If they could wait for a few days, they could buy a new device like FTD and all. So Cisco gave them a new type of solution. What they said, in a same ASA chassis box, in a ASA hardware, you can install one SSD, solid state drive. Okay, that's your hard drive, minimum of 128 GB. Install it in the ASA. All your ASA hardware chassis box has a slot of SSD wherein you can install the SSD. So what they told, you install one SSD and install the operating system of NGIPS here. So it's like a single box but with the two different operating systems. So they started calling it as a ASA with a firepower services. Or else they gave the another option that if you have the X series of ASA firewalls, all these X series of firewalls only can be modified, not without X series. Now, they also said, okay, either you remove the operating system of ASA from this chassis box, you remove. Instead of installing the two different operating systems, you install a single operating system. Either you install ASA operating system, or you install FTD operating system, or you install NGIPS. All the options were given. Okay, such type of option was called as a ASA with NGIPS or ASA with FTD. So ASA box was used, but internally we were having the operating system of FTD or NGIPS. Or we had the other option, you buy a dedicated devices. Yeah, someone telling something? Okay. So did you guys understand this part? How ASA was used and why did they call ASA with the firepower services?
Yeah, Sushil.
Yeah, okay.
Sushil, you said that ASA is the whole operating system was, upgraded or replaced, right? Or
Correct.
yeah, so at that time, this kind of an SSD upgradation or something is need to be done.
What time in which scenario you're talking?
I'm,
Scenario number
I'm,
two or
I'm talking
scenario
about
number
the
three?
scenario number 3.
Aha. In this time, what you have to do, even you have to remove the the mini operating system. Okay. So your ASA chassis box will have the mini operating system, right? The booting operating system also, right?
Yeah.
So even that also you have to change and you have to install the new operating system. So no more you'll be having the ASA operating system. You'll have the single operating system in this case.
Okay. So that will be supporting either NGPS, whether NGPS, if you are using NGIPS, that will be that kind of an operating system, right? If it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah, you can. Okay, so this part I have done practically uh, in our, you know, NH also we have one of the ASA on which I have deployed the FTD. So this part has been successfully done, and most of the places initially when ASA were, there was a huge ASAs in a market. That time they upgraded their ASA firewalls to the FTD in this way only. Okay, so they removed the entire operating system. You know, ASA operating system was installed in a flash drive itself, but you know, the FTD will not be installed in a flash. It requires some more space. So you have to install one SSD, and in that SSD you will be having the FTD operating system. Okay, this is only the advantage that you can go with the 55X series of the ASA firewall. Disadvantage, in what sense disadvantage you will say? Uh, Disadvantage, you could say, like those who have non-X series of ASA firewalls, that can't be upgraded. That's a disadvantage. ASA X series only can be upgraded to a firepower device. That's an advantage. Okay. Rest, whatever the functionality you have with a dedicated FTD, the same thing you'll have with the ASA converted to the FTD also. So functionality wise, you don't have anything less. Okay. But one thing can be there as a disadvantage, like FTD dedicated device will have, you know, capability of getting upgraded to more newer versions, but that might not happen with your ASA dedicated box. Okay, it might have some limitations. Till this versions only they might get upgraded, but with the dedicated box they might upgrade to newer versions. I mean, like might be 2 3 newer versions they can upgrade with the ASA, but might be with the dedicated FTD they can go for 5 6 7, whatever it is. Right, it depends on the series of your devices also. Okay, these are the few model numbers of your FMC. Like we have FMC 1000, FMC 2500, FMC 4500. Each devices will have the limitations. Okay, even FMC is present in a form of virtual. The virtual FMCs can manage up to 25 devices only at a time, but the hardwares will have more capabilities. Like they'll have the more capacities, they can manage more devices. It can be like 25, it can be 200. It depends on the model number also. So if you go through the specification of the model number, you will come to know that each model numbers can manage up to how many devices. After converting ASA box to FTD, will it work as a physical FTD or virtual FTD? See, it will work like a physical FTD because you have the physical box, right? And physical box, you upgraded it to a new device. So it will work as a physical FTD, not a virtual FTD. Brief on FMC, like which model number can manage up to how many devices and what will be the storage and all that we can see. Let me see another document with. In FTD, I had shown some details. See, these are the ASA model numbers that can be upgraded. Like we have the X series, and these are also the X series. Like these are the small, and these are the large and the higher model numbers of your X series of the FTD that can be converted into the FTD. Now, one more thing, like whatever the security devices you have, okay? Now, let's say I have the FMC, right, through which I manage everything. Now, through the FMC, right, you manage visibility, redware like DOS attack, DDoS attack, URL filtering, network analysis, email threat, identity, DNS, firewalling, everything you control by FMC, right? So for all these things, all these features also, you would require the updates, right? All the updates for all these features, you receive it from the TELUS. So what is TALUS? TALUS is basically a security intelligence from where you receive the update from all these for all these features, which is present in your FMC. So basically your FMC receives all the updates from the TALUS. So TALUS is nothing but it's a security intelligence, you can say, from where it receives the updates for all the features.
So is it like from Cisco only or
No, it's a Cisco only. Cisco, that branch is basically called as a TELUS. Okay,
okay.
the Cisco only. These are few management centers. Always remember the management center, firepower management center will be indicated by FS. Like your ASA firewall is indicated by ASA, right? Like your FTD is indicated by FTD or NGFW, NGIPS by NGIPS. The same way, your firepower management center is indicated by FS. It's a short form for the firepower device. So, like if you have the model number of 750, 2000, or 4000, see their capabilities. Like this model number can manage up to 10 devices, 70 devices, and 300 devices. The event that it can store up to 100 GB, 1.8 TB, 3.2 TB, right? Maximum network maps, host per user, hosts or hosts per user, you can say, and events per second, EPS, that it can store up to is this. Now, in a virtual appliance, now let's say if I have the FMC in a virtual form, I mean like with the software appliance, that can manage up to 24 devices. So this is how you can see. Okay. So these were the, the things that it can do. Now your FMC is capable for doing all these things. Means your FMC has all these features. Like what type of features? You'll have the detecting the threats, users, web applications, application protocols, file transfer, malware filtering, command and control servers, client application servers, network servers, detecting operating systems, detecting router and switches, detecting mobile devices, printers, voice over IP phone, virtual appliance, virtual machines, vulnerability information. So basically, your FMC has all these new generation or new type of features. Okay. Now here you can see, yes, Jyoti Prakash means FMC filtering all these datas. Yes, FMC has all those features that can be used. Now let's say your device NGIPS has the functionalities, but the manager does not have, means it will not make any sense, right? So manager needs to have all those features through which they can apply those features to your NGIPS or to your FTD, any firepower devices, right? So basically I was telling your FMC, your manager has all those functionalities. Okay. See, day by day, the target of any device is to increase the visibility, SID. If every day, if you don't have the visibility to the network, right, you cannot control the traffic. See, every day new type of attacks are coming, new type of features are coming. So every day your FTD, your FMC, your NGIPS, everything has to get upgraded. Okay. Anthony, you're telling me to choose virtual or the hardware. Now it depends on my budget. Okay. According to your CCIE security lab examination, virtual is preferred. Now, in a real time, it depends like how many devices I need to manage through FMC. how many branches do I have. If I have under 25, software is fine. If in future, if I am not going to purchase more, then the software is fine. I don't need to, go for a huge amount. But if I have more than 25, in future also, if I'm going to add more NGIPS and FTD in my network, then virtual appliance would not be applicable. So you have to go for the hardware. Am I clear, Anthony, Sid, Jyoti? Okay.
Sir, I have a question, please.
Yeah.
Can FMC integrated with SIEM like Sublink or it is a standalone management?
Standalone management in the sense, by default, it is a standalone only, right?
Yes, but can I integrate it with another SIEM like Sublink or
Yes,
something?
you can. They have a feature called as a Flex Connect. Okay. In FMC, you'll have the feature called as a Flex Connect, and that feature is present from 6.2 version onwards only. Okay. That Flex Connect feature gives you an ability to integrate the FMC with other vendors. Now, in a Cisco itself, Flex Config, not Flex Connect, it's basically called as a Flex Config. Do you see this option? This option basically gives you ability to get integrated with the other SIM devices. Like, Cisco has came up with its own SIM type of devices. Have you heard about a flow collector?
No.
It's a new device that they have introduced in a CCIE security version 6. Okay. So like you have a flow collector, flow manager, flow sensor, right? So those devices are basically working like a SIM device only. Okay. So in Cisco, now Cisco itself has a SIM device. That's your flow collector or flow manager, you can say. Okay. But if you're asking me, even FTD can be managed by some other non-Cisco devices, the answer is yes. You know that flow collector which I'm talking about now, which is a part of Cisco now, actually that was a part of some other vendor. Okay. There was a vendor called LANCOP. So LANCOP vendor was acquired by Cisco, and later on Cisco gave its own name as a flow collector. Okay. So flow collector and flow manager and flow sensor, these are the three devices that has to be integrated with themselves. And further, whatever the Cisco devices you have, like you have the FMC, you have ICE device, you have WSA, you have switch, you have routers, anything that you have, all those devices you can integrate with that flow collector. So it's basically a SIM device only, but we call it as a flow collector. Okay. So all the network devices, it can learn their traffics, they can learn, we can analyze it, we can, have more in-depth visibility. Okay. Yeah, through SNMP. See, it has a SNMP protocol also, and it has a uh, NetFlow also. Okay. Let me show you once. Version 6. It's basically called as a stealth watch. Okay. So a stealth watch is basically a product, okay, under which you'll have the FTD. You can integrate the multiple devices. You can integrate multiple devices, like you can integrate anything that you want to, any Cisco products or non-Cisco products also you can integrate. So if any vendor wants to buy a stealth watch, right, they can buy. So you have an ability wherein you can integrate all the Cisco devices, right? And this is a stealth watch. This is a new type of the stealth watch that we are using. Okay. It's a new device. I just want to show you like what is the dependency and how does it work. See, you can see here, it uses a flow collector port number as a 2055. Okay. And what is this? This is a default net flow port for the flow collector. So it's basically using a net flow, the protocol itself. So it uses a dedicated port number as a 2055 to collect all the informations from the network. So this is actually a device which is used as a SIM device in a Cisco, which they have introduced in a CCIE security version 6. Okay. When you guys will be aware of all the security devices, right? At the last, I'll take the class of Stealth Watch. Okay. And in that, I'll show you how to integrate the stealth, all the devices with your Stealth Watch. So basically, this functionality on your FMC gives you an ability to integrate. And these all are the new features that has been added to the FMC with a 6.2 version onwards. And in your CCI security version 6, we recommend to go either with 6.2 or more than 6.2. In a 6.2, you can go with the migration tools. You can use the REST API. You can go with the packet tracer or the packet capturing command. Okay. Interchases clustering also you can do. You can also deploy it on the Azure, right? You can also integrate with the PX thread grid. Okay. That's your ICE feature. You can also go with the side-to-side VPN, right? You can go with the PKI support, user-based, URL, and flex config. These all are the new type of features supported by 6.2 version. See, your typical IPS was having only visibility to thread section. But now the next generation IPS or next generation firewall, if you talk, see these features are present with your NGIPS also and FTD also, because FTD is the combination of NGIPS as well. Yesterday I told you the Lena part, that a Lena part will not be done, like routing will not be done, right? A VPN creation and all those things will not be done. But apart from that, you can create a users, you can go for application protocols, you can go for file transfer, web application. All these features are also present in your NGIPS. These are the next generation. In your network, if you have any one of the devices like voice over, voice over IP, like IP phones, printers, mobile devices, client applications, router and the switches, network services, any operating systems running in your network. Let's say Windows operating system is running, or Linux is running, or Mac is running. So whenever the data will be collected by your NGIPS, or whenever the data will pass through NGIPS, NGIPS by default has the capability to understand all those operating systems as well. So it has more visibility, insight visibility. So what basically Cisco tells you, gain more insight with increased visibility. You can't protect what you can't see. So it's true. Anything that you can't see, you can't protect it, but the things that you can see, you can protect it. Now let's come here. These are a few model numbers and their comparisons. So before purchasing any NGIPS, definitely you need to check the throughput of the NGIPS, right, based on their features. So you can see all these features, like we have 7000 series. In a 7000 series, these are the model numbers, like 70, 10, 20, 30, 50. These are 7100 series, okay, with the different model numbers like 7110, 7115. And in this way, you guys need to check like what are the new model numbers introduced by the Cisco, right? And you can see their throughputs for the IPS, like 50 Mbps, 100 Mbps, 200, 1.25 Gbps, right? So guys, you have to check these throughputs, which is very important. because without knowing the throughput or the bandwidth of your device, how could you deploy it into the network? So keep looking into this most important feature. Okay, these things we have already discussed. Okay, this thing I'll discuss now. This is like Firepower Management Center virtual appliance can be deployed or is supported with what type of, the platforms, with which version. Like we had 5.30 version, supported with the VMware vCloud Director, supported with the ESXi server 5.0, 5.1, but not supported with all this. Then when it was a part of Cisco 5.3.1 till this point, 5.4 onwards, they supported till 5.5 version of your ESXi. Now, when they introduced 6.x version, you can see in the 6.x versions, you can see they started supporting a newer version of your ESXi, right? Also, it supported the AWS. But now when they upgraded latest version, now they are not supporting the older versions. They are supporting only the newer version of your ESXi, like 5.5, 6.0. It is also supporting the KVM and also supporting the AWS. These all are the public clouds. This is for Linux and this is for your Amazon. So these all are supported with your 6.x versions. So guys, am I clear with this basic concepts? Till now, whatever we have discussed, am I clear with all this stuff?
Yeah.
Redundancy, Anthony, it will be between the individual devices, right? Lots of traffics will be there. Definitely there will be lots of traffics in a network. We need a log manager to manage those logs. That's your stealth watch. Now time to understand the continuum of attack. Now where exactly in a network your NGIPS should be deployed and what's the role of NGIPS? Now initially what traffic should get accepted and what traffic should not get accepted will be decided by two different features, either with the firewall or with your VPN. So you guys have seen your AS device, right? And from here you can see your internet is connected and the traffic is reaching to the outside through the outside interface to your firewall. So first of all, your firewall will be there to take care what type of traffic should get allowed and what type of traffic should not get allowed, or the traffic coming through the VPN, right? So these are the two different initial phases where the traffic should get filtered. Now let's say through the firewall from the outside world, whatever the traffic was supposed to allow or through the VPN got allowed it, right? And after that, from the firewall, after accepting the packet until reaching to your internal network, in between, NGIPS comes into a picture. Till your packet comes to your internal network and till your packet is allowed it from your firewall. This middle particular section is called as a, the section where NGIPS will be deployed. Means your packet is not reached, has not reached to your internal devices, and the packet has been accepted from your gateway. Okay, but the middle stage, what you say, that is the place where the NGIPS comes into a picture. Okay, so whenever the packet from the outside will be allowed, it has to get filtered with your NGIPS with the database, with the signature database. Okay, so with the signature database, it will filter all the contents, right? If it is okay, it will allow, or NGIPS will take the appropriate action on that particular content, and it might drop, or it might block, or it might deny. Okay, so depends what exactly the action is defined to the signature and what signature has been triggered on your NGIPS. So this is the place where exactly the NGIPS would be deployed in your network. Guys, are you understanding what I'm talking about And what place I'm talking about where the NGIPS would be deployed?
Yeah, Shishir.
Let me show you a diagram. See, this is a normal diagram. If you exclude this part, okay, then what do you see? I have a normal, the devices in my network that is communicating through the gateway. There is no security device. And see this scenario. There is an NGIPS deployed. Either the traffic going from the internal to outside or the traffic coming from the outside to my internal network, till your packet reaches to the internal device. In between you have the NGIPS deployed. So NGIPS will be used to filter all those contents that is coming from outside to your inside. So once the packet gets allowed by your ASA, by your gateway, directly the packet is not reaching to your internal network. In between you have NGIPS deployed, which takes a decision to filter your content. So an NGIPS will have the signatures, right? And those signatures, those active signatures, right, should be responsible for filtering your content. So this is the phase what I'm talking about. This is a during stage or during phase. Okay. So you have three stages: before, during, and after. Now let's say if any threat is already in a network, in that scenario, I can use AMP for endpoints or AMP to protect my internal networks. So different stages with the different devices can be used. Okay. Now, before I talk about the deployments, now it's time to understand NGIPS hardware. Now, let's say, for example, guys, this is one of the, outer architecture of your NGIPS, or you can say a panel. Okay. In the hardware or in a software also, all the interfaces through which a traffic will pass or the traffic will be received, we call it as a sensing interface. On NGIPS, we call it as a sensing interface. Okay. And you have one management interface, and obviously you'll have one console, which is not shown here. Console will be used for the physical connection. Management interface will be used for what? Tell me, what is the use of management interface, guys?
To physically log in the equipment.
What is the use of management interface? Login into firewall. Okay, connecting to FMC. Okay, that is also true. Getting a GUI access to manage a device. But I can manage the device through CLI also, right? What is the main purpose of management interface? Connecting to FMC, that is one of the reason. Other, see, simple is we use it for the remote access purpose. Now in a remote access purpose, it can be anything. Connecting to FMC, taking a GUI access, taking a SSH access, anything, right? Have you ever seen taking a remote access through the console port? Is it possible? Anthony, yes. Console port taking a remote access. Are you assigning an IP address to the console port and taking a remote access? That's what I'm saying. So console is used for physical access. No need of any IP address. Right. But coming to the management interface, this management interface should be assigned with an IP address. And based on that IP, services will be enabled. Like at the NGIPS management interface, few services you will find by default enabled. Not even at the NGIPS, I would say all the firepower devices, Few services are by default enabled. My question for all the previous guys, tell me what are the services by default at the firepower devices? Those who have attended the FTD FMC classes, they must be knowing this. Okay, HTTPS, ICMP, SSH, anything else? Correct. Port number 8305. Okay, 8305 is TCP or UDP? TCP, correct. So TCP port number 8305, which is used for integration purpose. Now, if I'm integrating NGIPS with FMC, then this port will be responsible for integration. This is TCP port number 8305. And by default, HTTPS, ICMP for reachability, HTTPS for GUI access, and SSH for your console access will be enabled. So these are the services by default enabled at these firepower devices. Either it is a software or it's a hardware, no matter. These are the default services. You don't have like a HTTP enabled or telnet. These are not enabled. Okay, these are only the enabled features by default. Now, understand this management interface. Management interface is also known as out of band interface. Now, who can tell what is the meaning of out of band? Out of band interface is also called to a management interface. Why do we call out of band? Have
That
you
will
seen
not be
anywhere
used
written
for
out of
data.
band interface? Yeah, somewhere telling.
Yeah, that will not be used for data traffic.
Correct. So basically it will be out of band means in band means, you know, where the data traffic can pass, like through the through the device, through traffic can be there, right? The traffic will enter through one interface and exit through the other interface. That's basically called as a in band. Okay, out of band basically is wherein you are only working with the two only sending the traffic. Okay, the traffic is not like passing through and exiting through the other interface. It's not like that. It's totally out of band, out of your data plane. This management interface will be separated with the control plane traffic. Only the control plane traffics will be there. You can call it as a management plane. Okay, so management plane traffics can reach like HTTPS, SSH. These are the management traffics, right? In case there is a problem in a data traffic, it can be reachable via management interface. No. In a case of Cisco, in the case of NGIPS, it's not like that. In a case of NGIPS or in a case of FTD also, or in the case of FMC also, all these three firepower devices, you will take a remote access or the controlling of your firewall only through the management interface or through the console interface, not through the data interfaces. Okay, so on FMC you don't need any data interfaces. It will use a management interface to integrate, right? Now listen, on a NGIPS you have the dedicated management interface which is used only for management purpose, not for data traffic. And this is only the interface where you assign the IP address. This is the interface where you assign the IP address. Now, as you know, NGIPS, no, you cannot make a management interface to act like a data interface. No, not possible. Now see, on NGIPS, whatever the sensing interfaces you have, all these sensing interfaces, you know, will not get assigned with an IP address on NGIPS. you can't assign IP address to all these interfaces. Total 8 interfaces are there with the simple model number, with the with the lowest model number. You can see these 8 interfaces, right? And these 8 interfaces can be paired. So how many pairs can be created? 4 pairs can be created. 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs can be created. So basically what I'm telling here, all these interfaces are the individual interfaces. But if I want to pair them, then I can make a pair like 4 pairs I can make. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 pairs I can make. Why do I need to make a pair and what is the use of pair? That we'll discuss later. But these are the, by default, these all are the individual sensing interfaces. It depends on your deployment. What type of deployment are you doing? IPS or IDS? If you do IPS deployment, they will make a pair themselves. If you do a IDS deployment or the passive deployment, they all sensing interfaces will be individual interfaces. They will work like a individual interface. Now, tell me guys, how many of you know IPS or IDS? These are two different devices or a single device?
Single device.
Anthony, where have you seen two different devices? There are two different functions, correct? But my question was, are they two different devices or two different, a single device? I didn't tell you about like two different functionalities, right? I asked you about a single device or a two different device. It's a single device. Okay. Your deployment decides either your NGIPS is going to work as a IPS or IDS. Depends. Now let's say I want these two interfaces to work like a IPS and this interface to work like a IDS. That is possible. I can take individual decisions to your sensing interfaces. Remember, very first thing, these sensing interfaces can't be assigned with an IP address. These sensing interfaces are responsible for RX and TX of your traffic. Okay. If it is a single interface, it will only do RX, means it will only receive. If it is a pair, it will be responsible for RX and TX both. One interface can receive, other can transmit, or the other can receive and the other interface can transmit. So basically any interface can receive and the other can receive, transmit. So RX and TX can be done. That's basically inline. Okay. Yeah, if it is a single, then it's a half duplex. But when it is a pair, then you can say like full duplex, right? Like you can receive and transmit both. So basically you can go for through traffic. Through is only possible in inline and two is possible in IDS. In a IPS condition, a real traffic will pass through the NGIPS. You can take an action on a real packet. IDS will work with a copy of packet. A real packet will not be at your IDS interface. If I deploy a single interface of the NGIPS just for monitoring purpose, how many of you guys are aware of span and RSPAN functionality of the switch in Cisco? Span, RSPAN. What is the use of span, RSPAN functionality? It works with the copy of packet, right? So there will be a device wherein you need to copy and send the packet. So there will be a source and there will be a destination for monitoring purpose. The same thing is IDS. You will connect your sensing interface on the switch and that switch will be configured to receive the packet from some source and send it to the NGIPS connected interface. So when the packet will reach to the sensing interface will take that data and match it with the database that is present or that it is assigned with. So basically all these signature interfaces will be connected with a signature database. We'll call it as a signature database. All the sensing interfaces are connected with signature database. Now what is signature database? That we need to know. We also need to know what's a signature, right? Then you will understand the signature database. So all these sensing interfaces are connected with the signature database. So whenever the data is coming to this sensing interface, it is matched with the signature database and they decide whether your content inside the packet is malicious or not. Okay. So this is how your NGIPS decides whether your packet should get allowed or should not get allowed or what action should be taken. That's basically a part of a signature. Now tell me, like, how many of you know what's a signature? What is a signature?
Signature is consist of some vulnerability fingerprints.
Only vulnerabilities?
Yeah, that's all I know.
Correct. It's exploited code executed by attackers, or it's a predefined pattern of attacks, or it's like a pattern. Correct. See, in your network, every day multiple attacks are happening, right? Attackers uses the multiple exploits to compromise your device. Now those exploits can be different combination of codes. It can be a new code, it can be a old code, or it can be a combination of new and old code, right? So basically whatever the attacks has been already occurred, right? Those attacks are basically created as a signature. So those are the well-known attacks. The signatures which are present in the database of your NGIPS, those are the well-known attacks. The attacks which has been already performed, the attacks which has been already done, that's basically called as a signature. Now tell me guys, what do we call the attack which has been never performed before, or the attack which has no solution? That is basically called as a zero-day attack. So always remember, the attack which has been newly created, or the attack which has no solution, or the attack such type of attacks we basically called as a zero-day attack. Okay, so is your NGIPS capable for detecting a zero-day attack by default? Is your NGIPS capable for detecting your zero-day attack by default? If no, then why? If yes, then why? Okay, my question again, do we have a feature on NGIPS that can detect a zero-day attack? Do we have that feature? What is that feature called? Correct. See, by default, this AMP feature, advanced malware protection feature, is not enabled. AMP feature requires a license. Without license, your AMP will not work. Even NGIPS will not work without license. Okay. So if you want to protect your network with a new type of attacks, you can do that by enabling the AMP feature. That feature is present in NGIPS, but by default it's not enabled. But if you want to enable the NGIPS feature on the device, you can. And to enable the NGIPS AMP feature, you have to subscribe the license. You have to go with the license. So if I'm asking you, is by default AMP enabled on the firepower device? Answer is no. If my question is, do you have the feature to detect the zero-day attack on your firepower device? The answer is yes. what AMP do exactly if there is no predefined signature. Okay. Have you heard about this sandbox, Mustafa? What does the sandbox do? It's exactly the same thing what sandbox does. It's an isolated environment, right? Which has predefined codes, right? Which has predefined codes. It's a design, it is already pre-designed with all those patterns which has to, which that particular AMP will use to test on the content. So let's say all those patterns or the combination of patterns that can be used to test or to execute on that particular content. So basically, let's say you might have heard, most of you guys might have heard about the pen testing. What is pen testing, guys? What is pen testing?
Pen testing is a tool like to verify the ratings of any particular URL.
It's basically the way
Like
that
whether
you can try to find out the loopholes into your device, right? Or
yes,
any type of, you can execute, you can either, let's say, if I want to test, if I want to do a pen testing for any website, or if I want to do a pen testing for any software, or if I want to do a pen testing for any hardware, any operating system. So basically, I'll try to find a loophole or vulnerabilities on that particular device by executing the multiple exploits. Now, in a vulnerability only, if I talk, there are multiple types of exploits, right? Like we have cross-site forgery, SQL injection, cross-site forgery. There are multiple type of attacks only inside the vulnerability. Now, if I try a different pattern of, let's say, SQL injection, I'll try to inject. So different process is there, different codes are there. So basically, we create that. But when you talk about the AMP is the combination of all those codes, wherein it will try to inject or try to execute the things on the file, and it will try to test that particular file is actually a kind of exploited code, or it is a kind of what type of file exactly it is. So your AMP device is pre-designed with such type of environment, and whenever they are executing or testing such type of files, they are not affecting your network. Why? Because that's basically an isolated environment, right? So overall, it's a testing thing wherein it tests your devices, your the contents in an isolated environment as your sandbox works. The same thing you have in a Palo Alto also, called it as a wildfire. Okay, so almost in today's date, all the devices, all the vendors have such type of testing environment. Okay, in today's day, if you say I'll be depending on the signature database which is present in a IPS, that's not basically the right way of protecting your network. If someone is depending only on the signature database of your NGIPS and they are thinking that they are able to protect all the attacks, is it true, guys?
no,
Let's say I deployed a best firewall in a world. Let's say I deployed Palo Alto firewall, but I didn't take a subscription of Wildfire, which is capable for detecting the zero-day attack, right? So do you think your network is secure by deploying the best firewall? No, it's not. So this is the advantage of your AMP. In an AMP also, you have two types of AMPs: AMP for network, AMP for endpoints. So basically, the AMP which we use to protect our network, we'll call it as AMP for network. Okay, so this,
Sir,
yeah,
actually, when I enable the license, the feature for the AMP.
Hmm.
Both scanning for network and host will be enabled.
No. You can scan all those when I use AMP for the network, that will basically help you to capture the unknown packets and also will help you to detect those unknown packets. If it is allowed in the network, it will help you to detect what are where those unknown files are there in the host, right? And where exactly those hosts are, what are the numbers of those unknown packets in a network, right? So basically AMP for network will help you to protect the network. AMP for endpoints will help you to protect your endpoints, right? Now it depends what type of subscription you have taken, AMP for endpoint or AMP for the network. See, AMP functionality almost is same. Okay, it will help you to detect, it will help you to like it will help you to even through the AMP, you can also integrate with the PX grid, PX thread grid functionality of your eyes, and you can use it to, what do we call it, to remediate the threats. So you can use AMP for endpoints to remediate the existing threats into your network, right? It's for remediation purpose. Let's say if any threats are already in the network, to remediate those threats, I can use AMP for endpoints, and to protect my network, I can use AMP for network. Okay. Basically, I don't have a license for that AMP, so it's very difficult to tell about the AMP without license. I have used twice I have used with the real time. I didn't get much time to explore on those things with the license device. If you have a license, then only you can work with that. Okay guys, from tomorrow onwards we are going to discuss about the sensing interfaces deployment. How can we deploy the sensing interfaces? What are the deployment modes? And also we are going to discuss about the attacks. Okay, so we are going to discuss about the signatures and the default features present on the IPS. Okay, so hopefully tomorrow we'll be finishing the theoretical part, and from day after tomorrow onwards, yeah, I can say day after tomorrow onwards I'll be doing a lab. I hope all of you have shared your email IDs before, right?
Yes.
Let me check. Yeah, I'll be sharing everything. Okay, I copied all your email IDs. Okay, so I'll be sharing very soon.